All right, folks. Mark Rogers TV with my final live stream of the night. You're on board with the voice of college football as we go out to grab the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. And of course, you've got to take my analysis with it as well. But we've got Mike Regalado on the line from UCLA's Gojo Bruin. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Good, thank you. Now that my computer's working properly.
Yeah, this kind of doesn't work too well if the computers don't cooperate. We kind of depend on those these days, don't we? So the UCLA banner looks good behind you, Mike. I love it.
Thank you.
I will continue to say until somebody changes their uniforms in a way in which I'm not anticipating that it's the best looking uniform in college football.
Well, we will take that. Thank you very much. So
all right. So to match the team in the uniform, that's going to be the goal of Mr. Chip Kelly, of course, is to try to live up to those colors and the potential of this program. Right now, we've got a number of UCLA freshmen on campus that know nothing more from college football life than Chip Kelly's word and the word of his coaching staff. They were maybe recruited by Jim Mora, but Chip Kelly's their head coach from the beginning. So give us an idea of some of those contributors that we might see hit campus and be impactful starting in 2018.
Well, good place to start because I actually just today we released an article on GojoBruin.com about the 5 freshmen that are most likely to see heavy minutes next season. Already there have been a few freshmen and incoming, transfers that joined the team in spring. One of them, highly touted, highly recruited, 4-star wide receiver Chase Cota, who he's been, pretty impressive. Tall body, lean, quick. Definitely the type of receiver that Chip Kelly wants to utilize in his system. He was actually one of the only players to have to catch a touchdown pass during the spring game. So that was a bit of a boost of confidence for him. But, he's a guy that can really stretch the field. Chip Kelly wants to do a run-based spread offense, and he's definitely going to do that with guys like Coda, Brian Addison, Kyle Phillips, another guy who came into spring. So they're loaded on the freshman front. 2 guys in particular that Bruin fans are really looking forward to. I'll start with a guy that's a little less known, Kazmir Allen, who is just a fast running back. He has good vision. He can, hit the angles and, cut around defenders. I think he had something insane like 70 touchdowns last year in one season alone. So his speed is definitely going to be needed among the running backs. The running back cord, but it's pretty exciting to see what he's going to do with the running backs. And then the one guy who he wasn't actually recruited by Chip Kelly, but by Jim Mora. He committed during the Jim Mora era and stayed on. Stayed on when Chip Kelly was hired, which is funny because it seems that Dorian Thompson Robinson, DTR, out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, seems better suited for Chip Kelly's system rather than Jim Mora's system. He's a dual threat quarterback. He has a solid arm, Josh Rosen-esque accuracy. Let me say that properly. But he has like the arm of Josh Rosen and the legs of Brett Hundley, so he can scramble out whenever he gets into a pickle. One thing I noticed about him is he moves his feet all the time. Whenever he's setting his feet, whenever he's trying to escape defenders, it's just moving, and it's just that's the engine that powers his train going forward. So he's going to be an excellent addition to the offense. But Chip Kelly has 5 quarterbacks that are going to be in what I like to call the quarterback battle royale. And, it just seems that Kelly is trying to figure out which player has the most talents, the best skills to fuel his offense to have it going, this season.
And it's a situation without having a true incumbent quarterback, although Devin Monster has some experience with the final 2 games of the season under his belt, where he would have a playing experience edge over a few guys. but it doesn't necessarily apply to the quarterback situation. Chip Kelly coming in, assessing the field, but guys that are starters elsewhere on the field, whether it be offense and defense, typically a head coach, especially one with the style and the swag of a Chip Kelly, comes in and basically says, hey, this is my program now. You may have done this last season or the season before. Good for you. But I'm assessing things as I see them right now. And I know that he's locked up watching tons of film and really burning the midnight oil from what I hear in terms of trying to assess these players. But at the same time, everybody's got a clean slate, and he comes in with a fresh perspective on personnel and how they're going to fit into his system and who's going to work hardest and who's going to put themselves in a position to win a job. And then also with a completely new coaching staff for the most part, saying, okay, we're definitely approaching things differently offensively, because that's the first thing that comes to mind for anyone when it comes to Chip Kelly. But even defensively, a different approach that people are going to have to, players are going to have to change and acclimate themselves to. And so what would be those changes that come to mind that are going to be noticeable for the typical fan watching UCLA 2018 versus 17?
It's speed. Obviously, there's going to be speed all over the place, but the one thing that Chip Kelly likes to do is have his practices organized, and he doesn't want to lag. He doesn't want to waste any time, and we saw a lot of that in practice. Although, it was a lot quicker than what we saw in the Jim Mora era. But I have a feeling it could be even faster once we get to fall. And, who knows if UCLA is going to allow practices to be open, whether it's the first 2 weeks or, none at all. I expect the practices to be a lot faster. And that's just the main thing: how quickly the team gets on and off the field, how quickly they get to their positions, how quickly plays are called in. So that's just going to be one thing to watch. The other thing is just how guys respond to Chip Kelly. He's definitely no nonsense. He has a plan. He has an agenda for this team, and it's obviously it's his way or the highway. He said at the beginning of spring practice that he didn't look at any film from last season because he wanted to see he wanted to see the team in his own eyes and assess every player in every position just to see what he has. And he doesn't care if a guy's a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. He's going to use the guys that best put the team in position to win.
So, Mike, I'm checking out the website right now. You've got a very intriguing headline that I'm not going to let you give away, because we want to point people to gojobruin.com to check out Mike's content right there and the rest of the staff there. Why UCLA will not start out as hot as Oregon. So check out that article. But one thing that does come to mind as I monitor the chat on YouTube is that a number of people, as I promoted the segment here earlier in the night, some people asked me what would be considered success for Chip Kelly in year one and also long term, because we were talking about the best coaches in the country. Chip Kelly came up. A number of people asked me, okay, what's the success at UCLA this year? Which certainly isn't going to be nearly as stringent as what the expectations are going to be on the Bruins long term under Chip Kelly, because big money, famous coach is expected to deliver. But we understand that he's in a position where he's building the program, certainly in year one. So what are your thoughts about what can possibly be expected year one and let's say in a 4 or 5 year range?
Bill Connolly of SB Nation came out with his preview of UCLA football, and he's basically said the same thing that a lot of UCLA fans, writers, analysts have been saying since Chip Kelly was hired. This year is going to be, a lot of people are going to give Chip Kelly a pass, specifically because he basically has to start from scratch at UCLA. And the thing that is real, that UCLA fans really need to pay attention to, is the fact that their schedule is brutal. It is one of the toughest schedules in the nation. They have Oklahoma, Washington, Stanford, USC, and on top of that, there a lot of teams in the Pac-12. They're up and coming. Arizona scares me a little bit with Kevin Sumlin, Herm Edwards. That guy's just a wild card. So who knows? What's going to happen there. USC, even though they don't have Darnold, they're still pretty dangerous. And then Stanford just has UCLA's number. And then the Bruins go up to Oregon this season, and so that's going to be a very interesting game. Chip Kelly returning to the place that made him famous. So going back to what I was talking about, Bill Connolly, he said pick any record, and he would not be surprised if UCLA achieves that. 4-8, 8-4, anything in between. It just up in the air of what happens. So as long as UCLA is consistent, I think maybe 6-6, a bowl game would be kind of acceptable. Although if UCLA doesn't achieve that, I don't think fans are gonna be pissed. Just depending on how they play in certain games. If a lot of games are tight, if they're really close. One thing I've kind of started preaching is the fact that Jim Mora. We always looked at the schedule and said, well, there are going to be some games that he should win and he's going to manage to lose. With Chip Kelly, I think there are going to be games people look at for him to lose and he's actually going to win. And I did a bold prediction article a few weeks ago and said that, basically stated that out of Oklahoma, USC, Stanford, and Washington, I have a feeling Chip Kelly's going to pull out at least 2 of those. So, it's up in the air. It's whatever. I can't even explain it because they could be really good, which I think they will be, but they can also stumble. One thing I noticed in the spring game and practice, the defense has become a lot more aggressive and they're attacking the ball a lot more. The offense is going to take a little bit of time to get going, and as we saw in the spring game, it sputtered a little bit. So I'm a little bit worried about how the offense is going to do by the time we get around to September 1st when Cincinnati comes to town. Although I think UCLA might use Cincinnati as a bit of a punching bag and use that as a practice to get their offense going. But Oklahoma's the next week, so they've really got to start getting their offense going. Now during summer workouts and getting it tightening the screws once fall camp comes around. Beginning of August, I believe. So yeah, that's what we got to take a look at.
Love the UCLA talk with Mike Regalado from Gojo Bruin. As I scan the website, man, some people mentioned to me at times, Mark, how do you get all this content out there? I just need to click record and start talking. What Mike's doing is a much more difficult. He's got to format all sorts of things and make sure the website looks just fine. And I've gone through the fan-sided. I did some work for them a few years ago, so I know what it takes to build an article, select the pictures, go through the whole process of building the article, in addition to, of course, the stuff that really matters, the research and trying to write the article. And so he does a ton of work and just pours out the content on UCLA athletics. And of course, a big focus this time of year, getting us set for the football season. And in looking at the schedule, Mike, especially in a conference like the Pac-12 where so many teams are grouped together, there's not like a definite elite level and then a bottom tier that you can definitely identify. Although Oregon State, of course, is coming off the 0-9 season, there just is a glut of decent programs in the Pac-12, I think more so than any other conference in major college football. So when I'm trying to project records, I have to almost group teams together and say, I don't know if UCLA is going to beat Utah. I don't know if they're going to beat Arizona State. But once we group some of those similar teams together, I can look at it and say, okay, out of those 5, it would be really good if they could win 3 out of 5 and look at it that way. And when you look at this schedule, what makes it difficult, and I talked about this in a Pac-12 breakdown a few weeks ago in which I was looking at both future schedules, and I really got excited about some of the opponents that UCLA has scheduled for the future. Georgia comes to mind in particular with a home and home that should be very interesting. But also looking at Pac-12 scheduling for 2018, Mike, here's my issue. And the Pac-12 actually gets it more right than the SEC and the ACC by far are the worst at this. The Big Ten would be somewhere in the middle. The Big 12, they've got an automatic out because everybody plays each other. So that's their schedule. That they basically put no thought to it. But with the Pac-12 situation, so it's generally a fair situation. You play everyone in your division and you play 4 of the 6 teams in the other division. So I think it's a much better format than the SEC and the ACC that only play 8 teams, 8 total games in a 14-team league. So they're missing 5 opponents. So those schedule, the quality of the schedule is all over the place and it's very uneven. In the Pac-12, again, the overlapping nature of it makes it basically an equal, fair playing field. But UCLA just doesn't miss the good teams at all.
No.
So they're loaded up in the Pac-12 North division with the 2 best programs by far right now, Washington and Stanford, who project to be by far the 2 best teams that are going to fight for that division. So they don't miss either one of them. And then they do catch a slight break in Washington State, not on the schedule, but the rest of the teams in Cal and Oregon, Oregon expects and projects to be the 3rd best team in the division. So they have it about as tough as you possibly can have it in the conference. And then Cincinnati in the past has been one of the better group of 5s, but over the past few seasons, they've been down. The Oklahoma game, can it get much tougher? There's only a couple programs in the country that you would like to play less than a game in Norman. And then Fresno State was a surprise good team in the group of 5 that went to a conference championship game last year. So there are really no easy games. Cincinnati would be the easiest, and it's not like playing an FCS or anything.
No. I mean, the fact that Cincinnati is the easiest game shows how difficult UCLA is going to have it next season. But like you said, the rotating schedule of the Pac-12 does offer some, spreading the love or the hate, as it were. But this is going to be a difficult season. But then you look at next season, UCLA misses Oregon and Washington. Actually, for the next 2 seasons, UCLA misses Oregon and Washington, and then they bring Oregon State and Washington State onto the schedule. So right there, that's going to be a lot easier. As well as next season, 2019, Oklahoma comes to UCLA, and I think they also they're at Cincinnati, and then they take on San Diego State at home. So it's still going to be difficult, but it does get slightly easier. And so I think when it comes to, going back to your previous question, how successful can Chip Kelly be in his first year, second year, long term? I think next year he's going to have definitely an easier path to success. I mean, if Chip Kelly is successful at all this year, that's just going to build off of next season. And, I wrote another article for Gojo Bruin, actually 2 articles, why UCLA will win the Pac-12 South and why they won't win the Pac-12 South. And, a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about, a lot of legitimate reasons, the Pac-12 South alone is going through a lot of changes. It's like, puberty for all 6 teams. Darnold is gone. Darnold is gone. Jones is gone. Their receiver who slips my mind. His name slips my mind right now. He's gone. So what is USC going to do on the offensive end? Their defense is still pretty good, but who's going to lead the offense? Colorado is still, Colorado. They have their own problems. Arizona State and Arizona, just like UCLA, are going through coaching changes. And then you have Utah, who they, even though a lot of their games they lost by, within 3 points, it was still very uncharacteristic for a Kyle Whittingham team to go 3-6 in conference and to finish 5th. They were way better than that. And I think that, just because Whittingham is just such a fantastic coach, he's going to do way better. But with all that, aside from Colorado, they're definitely, I might take Arizona State out of that. There are 4 teams that legitimately could win the South Division, which is why UCLA has a shot at it. But then, you go back to what does UCLA need to fix? And like I said, one of the biggest things is the fact that the offense isn't completely clicking right now. And, he's going through 5 5 quarterbacks for his battle royale. He's assessing the running back situation where, you know, you have Soso Jamabo and Bolo Olorunfumni, the senior leaders, but yet they were outshined by a walk-on transfer, Joshua Kelly, during spring. He did an amazing job during spring and during the spring game. And then, you know, I talked about Casimir Allen, you know, how he should come in and start competing for some time. So it's just, you know, it depends on how everything clicks and comes together by the time fall camp runs around, and you know, the first game of the season is September 1st. So, you know, it's just, you know, who knows what's going to happen with UCLA.
Always fascinated with the Bruins. We've talked about it before, and I just think this program is just a sleeping giant, and now they've got a guy in play who knows how to win, and he won at a place where winning is difficult. So he did it there, and Oregon. Look at the track record under Chip Kelly. Oregon's been a nice program under the likes of Mike Bellotti, and of course, after Chip Kelly, they were able to get to a national championship with Chip Kelly's players, but they were really humming on all cylinders with Chip Kelly in play at Oregon and getting not great recruiting classes. He certainly improved recruiting to Oregon, and all the money and resources and facilities at Oregon moved it to a level higher than they had ever achieved before and have since. But they still weren't recruiting with the national powers. They were still recruiting nice recruiting classes, top 15 to 25 recruiting classes, but they were not bringing in Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson type recruiting classes, and they were winning and finishing in the top 5. So that speaks to Chip Kelly's ability to get through to young men, organize a system. And yes, it's going to be interesting to see if he has somewhat beaten the curve and been able to maintain his edge from a schematic side. What I find interesting, and I'm going to liken the Chip Kelly experience this second time around with a major program to what Steve Spurrier did at South Carolina. So Steve Spurrier hit the scene at Duke, and he lifted an atrocious program to an ACC championship. Then he got the job he really wanted and went to Florida and took a program that was underachieving forever and took it to the place where we now have Florida established football as a national power. And he did it because he was on the cutting edge of offense and nobody could keep up with him. But when they finally caught up to him, sure, the winning subsided to a certain extent, but he went to South Carolina. And even though he no longer was that offensive guru, he then became a guy that knew how to run a program, bring in really good talent, but not the very best talent. And he finished in the top 5 3 consecutive years in South Carolina with 11-win teams. And I think Chip Kelly might be an equivalent to Steve Spurrier in many ways in terms of just his approach to the game, his offensive mind, his ability to lead an organization, his charisma. And it's going to be interesting to see what Chip Kelly can do with less talent than he's used to having this first year, but he's going to get there rather quickly, I would think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we mentioned the Oregon game. That's going to be a fun one. Coconut Kane is mentioning UCLA playing at Oregon. And of course, Chip Kelly's going to have to go back to his old stomping grounds as probably a pretty substantial underdog against what is going to be an interesting Oregon team with Justin Herbert expected to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft at quarterback next season. Got a bit of an odd suggestion here, Mike. Ricky is suggesting he would like to see the NFL stadium there in Los Angeles be the site, a neutral site for USC UCLA.
You know, that'd be interesting. That's well, seeing as how there's so many neutral games, and heck, we even have international games. And let me just go back to Gojo Bruin again. A couple weeks ago, I wrote an article about some interesting international neutral site games. And actually, one of them I brought into Washington into the conversation, saying that, you know, I think it's, what is it, BC Place up in Vancouver. That would kind of be an interesting game for like UCLA Washington. So you know, I'm down for neutral site conference games. I don't think the Pac-12 is, but having UCLA and USC, you know, on a neutral site like that, seeing as how it's pretty much half blue, half scarlet at every, at every game, Coliseum or the Rose Bowl, that'd be pretty interesting. Personally, I think that the Pac-12 might be looking to that site more for the Pac-12 championship game. And actually, Pac-12 writer John Wilner, he brought that up in an article he wrote earlier today, but also talking about how the Las Vegas, the Raiders' new stadium, or soon to be Raider Stadium, that would be an ideal destination for the Pac-12 championship game. Yeah, I'm down for neutral site game. As long as the blue becomes outscores the scarlet. So I'm fine with that.
So there is no more beautiful setting in college football in terms of looking at the TV screen, and I'm sure it's even more of a spectacle in person when you get those USC uniforms on the same field as UCLA. And whether they're at the Coliseum, but I'm going to up the ante and say even more so at the Rose Bowl because of the decor on the field and the way it's decorated and just the shape of the stadium. And you're looking at the Rose Bowl, the green grass for us, Mike, us poor souls that are watching the leaves fall from the trees, and they're barren at that point. It's about 40 degrees outside.
Yeah,
watching that picturesque setting at the Rose Bowl with USC and UCLA playing, and again, even at the Coliseum, I would opt for just to see a different vibe, a different energy, and just to see how it would feel to see those two teams in the NFL stadium one time. And then I would probably be done with it, and I would want to go back to the Coliseum and the Rose Bowl as being the setting for one of the historic matchups in college football.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Maybe not every year, obviously, but one game at the Rose Bowl, one game at the Coliseum, one game at a neutral site. So I'd be into that. But like you said, just watching those two colors, the fact that during the Rick Neuheisel era, him and Pete Carroll wanted to have both teams have home jerseys. Just visually, in person and on TV, it just looks really good. The contrast of blue and gold and scarlet and gold, it's just a gorgeous game to watch, and it's even better if both teams are really good, slugging it out. But yeah, I have to go with you on that assessment that it's better at the Rose Bowl. So I'm just saying. So, the Coliseum, they're going through a lot of renovations right now, and there's a lot of tradition there, and obviously you can't knock that. But the Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl. It's just a fantastic venue. It's been host to Super Bowls, World Cups, even this summer, actually every summer they have international soccer games being played there. I think this year is Manchester United and I'm blanking on who the other one is. I want to say AC Milan. Don't hold me to that, but just going to see a game like that at the Rose Bowl, it's just fantastic, especially since it's on a golf course, the Arroyo Seco, the San Gabriel Mountains in the background. So yeah, it's a fantastic venue. But it would be, I would like to see what a neutral site, especially with the new Los Angeles Stadium. I forget what the name of it is, but just to see Bruin fans and Trojan fans going out that way to have a game. I'm just wondering how the tailgate situation would be at USC with the Coliseum. A lot of parking lots, a lot of concrete, a little compact. It's a little bit more spread out at the Rose Bowl, seeing as there's grass everywhere and you're on a golf course basically. So as long as there's good vibes between both fan bases and enough room for tailgating, heck, let's do it.
Yeah, I would certainly not be the guy to correct you on any soccer matchups, that's for sure. But Ricky here mentions and echoes what we're saying, and what many college football fans would say is that the Rose Bowl is just so beautiful. My favorite stadium, besides Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, so we know who Ricky roots for. The Iowa Stadium as being Kinnick Stadium, Iowa, being the most beautiful and giving a second place to the Rose Bowl. So basically he's telling us the Rose Bowl is the most beautiful. And yes, it is just a historic place and a special place for college football. All right, Mike Regalado, Go Joe Bruin. You have to check out the site and just look at the UCLA content. It's intriguing what Chip Kelly is doing at UCLA. And No. Are they most likely going to win big this year? That would be a shock to all of us. But in what Mike describes as, and I have the same thoughts, as a muddled Pac-12 South Division, where USC, I think, undoubtedly is the best roster, but issues at quarterback, young team, lose Deontay Burnett, Ronald Jones, and the like. They're vulnerable. And Utah is going to come back off a 3-6. I totally agree with that. Arizona State are marginal teams. They're top 50 teams. There is nobody invincible in this division. It's the one division in college football where you don't have to say, oh, there's Ohio State or there's Clemson or there's Georgia or Alabama. It's winnable. You don't even have to say there's Stanford or Washington like you do in the Pac-12 North. So it's possible. It's possible, not probable, but UCLA may make a run, and it could be exciting November football there at the Rose Bowl. All right, Mike, we appreciate you stopping by. And as you well know, you are welcome anytime. And certainly as we run down positions throughout the summer, talking UCLA football, we'll get you on here to get us set on the various position groupings, rivalries with USC. Would love to have you on talking USC, UCLA during the month of June. And our top 5 lists start looking at the Pac-12 and the best 5 players at each position in the conference. Mike, thanks so much for the time. I always appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, let's do it all summer long.